Argumentation theory is a fundamental area within philosophy and logic that focuses on the study of arguments. It aims to analyze, evaluate, and construct arguments to distinguish between good and bad reasoning. This field is crucial across various disciplines, including philosophy, law, politics, and science, where constructing coherent and persuasive arguments is essential for advancing knowledge and convincing others. At its core, argumentation theory seeks to answer several key questions: what makes an argument valid? How can arguments be formulated persuasively? And what types of arguments exist? An argument typically consists of three main components: premises, conclusion, and inference relation. Premises are statements or assumptions that are considered true and serve as the foundation of the argument, providing the supporting evidence for the conclusion. The conclusion is the statement that logically follows from the premises, the proposition that the argument aims to establish. The inference relation is the logical connection between the premises and the conclusion. A valid inference ensures that if the premises are true, the conclusion must also be true. The interaction among these components is crucial. For an argument to be strong, the premises must not only be true but also relevant and sufficient to support the conclusion, and the inference relation must be logically sound to ensure that the conclusion follows necessarily from the premises. Argumentation theory distinguishes between three primary types of arguments: deductive, inductive, and abductive arguments. Deductive arguments are characterized by the fact that the conclusion necessarily follows from the premises. They are truth-preserving, meaning that if the premises are true and the argument is valid, the conclusion must also be true. For example, consider the argument all humans are mortal. Socrates is a human, therefore Socrates is mortal. In this example, it is impossible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false, which demonstrates the validity of the deductive argument. Inductive arguments involve reasoning from specific observations to general conclusions. They are not truth-preserving, as the truth of the premises does not guarantee the truth of the conclusion. Instead, they provide probable support for the conclusion. For instance, the sun has risen every day in recorded history, therefore the sun will rise tomorrow. While the premises strongly support the conclusion, there is still a possibility, however slight, that the conclusion could be false. Abductive arguments, or inference to the best explanation, seek to find the most plausible hypothesis that explains the observed data. The conclusion is a probable explanation but is not guaranteed to be true. For example, the car won't start probably, the battery is dead. This argument suggests a likely cause based on the evidence, but acknowledges that other explanations are possible. Understanding the concepts of validity and soundness is essential in evaluating arguments. An argument is valid if the conclusion logically and necessarily follows from the premises. Validity concerns the form of the argument, rather than the actual truth of the premises. In a valid argument, it is impossible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false. An argument is sound if it is valid, and all its premises are actually true. A sound argument not only has a correct logical structure, but also is based on true information, ensuring the truth of the conclusion. For example, consider a valid but unsound argument: all birds can fly. Penguins are birds, therefore penguins can fly. The argument is valid because the conclusion follows logically from the premises. However, it is unsound because the first premise is false: not all birds can fly. A syllogism is a form of deductive reasoning consisting of two premises and a conclusion, involving three terms: the major term, the minor term, and the middle term. An example of a syllogism is all mammals are warm-blooded. All whales are mammals, therefore all whales are warm-blooded. Understanding common logical forms helps in evaluating the validity of arguments. Modus ponens, or affirming the antecedent, has the form: if A, then B. A is true, therefore B is true. For example, if it rains, the ground gets wet. It is raining, therefore the ground gets wet. Modus tollens, or denying the consequent, has the form: if A, then B. B is false, therefore A is false. For example, if it rains, the ground gets wet. The ground is not wet, therefore it is not raining. Recognizing logical fallacies is crucial in argument analysis. Affirming the consequent is a fallacy with the form: if A, then B. B is true, therefore A is true. This is fallacious because B could be true for reasons unrelated to A. For example, if I have the flu, then I have a fever, therefore I have the flu. Denying the antecedent is another fallacy with the form if A, then BA is false, therefore B is false. This is fallacious because B could still be true even if A is false. For example, if it is snowing, then it is cold, it is not snowing, therefore it is not cold. Cognitive biases can affect our ability to evaluate arguments objectively. Belief bias is the tendency to judge the strength of an argument based on the believability of the conclusion rather than the validity of the argument. This can lead people to accept invalid arguments if the conclusion aligns with their beliefs and reject valid arguments if the conclusion contradicts their beliefs. Confirmation bias involves favoring information that confirms existing beliefs and dismissing evidence that contradicts them. In scientific work, this can lead to selective data collection, interpretation, and recall, undermining the objectivity of research. Examples of logical problems include the conjunction fallacy, illustrated by the Linda problem, and the Monty Hall problem. In the Linda problem, people often assume that a more specific condition, Linda, is a bank teller, and a feminist is more probable than a general one, Linda, is a bank teller, which violates the laws of probability. The Monty Hall problem shows how intuition can conflict with mathematical probability. Switching doors increases the chance of winning, even though many people believe it does not matter. Venn diagrams are visual tools used to illustrate logical relationships between different sets or categories. They help in analyzing syllogisms and determining their validity by visually representing the logical relationships. For example, the categorical proposition all cats are animals can be represented by a circle cats entirely within another circle animals. To test the validity of an argument, one can use the method of counterexamples. By constructing an argument with the same logical form where the premises are true but the conclusion is false, one can demonstrate the invalidity of the argument form. For instance, consider the invalid argument all cats are animals, all dogs are animals, therefore all cats are dogs. The premises are true, but the conclusion is false, indicating invalidity. Additional argument forms and fallacies include the disjunctive syllogism and reductio ad absurdum. A disjunctive syllogism has the form either A or B, not a, therefore B. For example, either the light is on, or it's off, the light is not on, therefore it's off. Reductio ad absurdum is a method where one assumes the opposite of what one wants to prove, shows that this assumption leads to a contradiction, and concludes that the original proposition must be true. For example, in mathematics, to prove that the square root of 2 is irrational, one assumes it is rational and shows that this leads to a contradiction. Monotonic logic is a type of logic where adding new premises does not invalidate previous conclusions. In contrast, non-monotonic logic allows for conclusions to be invalidated by new information, reflecting the way human reasoning often works in real-life situations where new evidence can change our understanding. For example, initially concluding that birds can fly based on general knowledge, but upon learning that penguins are birds that cannot fly, the original conclusion is invalidated, demonstrating non-monotonic reasoning. Syllogistic logic involves 4 figures, each representing a different arrangement of the middle term in the premises. Traditional names like Barbara and Celarent are mnemonic devices representing valid syllogistic forms, where each vowel corresponds to a type of categorical proposition A, E, I, O. For example, Barbara represents a syllogism with the form all M are P, all S are M, therefore all S are P. Extensional semantics defines the meaning of a term by the set of all objects it refers to its extension. For example, the term cat refers to the set of all cats, and the statement all cats are animals means that the set of cats is a subset of the set of animals. This approach helps in understanding logical relations through set theory and facilitates the visualization of arguments. Critiquing arguments involves both structural and content critique. Structural critique focuses on the logical form and validity of the argument, examining whether the conclusion logically follows from the premises. Content critique assesses the truth and reliability of the premises, evaluating the evidence supporting them. An argument can be valid but unsound if the premises are false, so it is essential to ensure that both the logical structure is valid and the premises are true to accept the conclusion. For example, consider the argument all politicians are honest. Maria is a politician, therefore, Maria is honest. The argument is valid in form, but the premise all politicians are honest is likely false, making the argument unsound. In conclusion, understanding argumentation theory involves mastering various concepts, including the structure of arguments, types of reasoning, logical forms, fallacies, cognitive biases, and methods of critique. By analyzing arguments both structurally and in terms of content, one can evaluate their validity and soundness effectively. This knowledge is crucial not only for academic purposes, but also for critical thinking in everyday life, enabling individuals to construct coherent arguments and discern the strength of others' reasoning. Good luck with your exam.